He was driving home from his shift, exhausted and half asleep, when he saw her, barefoot, soaked in rain, and standing by the side of the road in a wedding dress, torn and stained. He didn't know that offering her a lift would change his life, and hers. But the moment she stepped into his truck, she brought more than just silence. She carried a secret worth millions and a story that would shatter everything he believed about love, loyalty, and second chances. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, share with someone who needs hope today. Subscribe our channel Kindness Talks for more real-life inspired emotional stories. The wipers screeched against the windshield as thunder rolled over the highway. It was close to midnight, and Liam Harper, single father of a 9-year-old girl named Rosie, was heading home after a double shift at the local mechanic shop. His hands were stained with grease, his eyelids heavy, and his heart lonely. Life had been a quiet storm since his wife passed away 4 years ago. Since then, Rosie had been his whole world. He worked, cooked, and even braided her hair, but there was always a hollow place at the dinner table, one he pretended not to notice. That night, as rain lashed the road, something unusual caught his eye. Just ahead on the shoulder stood a woman. Not just any woman, but one in a white dress, drenched and muddy, gripping her heels in one hand and shivering violently. Liam slowed the truck, pulled over, and rolled down the window. "You okay, miss?" She turned. Her makeup was smeared, her hair tangled, and her eyes, green, wide, terrified. Can I get a ride? Anywhere. Please." He hesitated. She looked like trouble. But she also looked like someone running from more than just the storm. "Hop in," he said, pushing aside his tool bag from the passenger seat. She climbed in, her dress catching on the door. It was torn at the side, and a trail of mud followed her in. She clutched her arms tightly across her chest and stared ahead without saying a word. They drove in silence for a while, the only sound the hum of the engine and the rain hammering the roof. "You got a name?" Liam asked gently. She paused. Then, "Claire." "All right, Claire. I'm Liam. And I'm guessing you're not coming from a costume party." She let out a small, bitter laugh and shook her head. "I left my wedding. Right before the vows. Just ran." He blinked. "That explains the dress." "I couldn't go through with it," she said, voice cracking. "Everyone said I'd be insane to walk away from him. He's powerful. Rich. Has everything anyone could want. But he never saw me. Only what I looked like on paper. He loved the idea of owning me, not the real Claire." Liam glanced at her. There was no pride in her voice, only pain. "Where you headed?" She looked out the window. "Nowhere. Anywhere. Just not back to that life." Without asking more, he drove her home. Rosie was already asleep. Liam offered her the guest room, and Claire, exhausted, soaked, and on the edge, nodded in gratitude without a word. That night, something changed in the quiet of that humble house. Claire curled up under a blanket that smelled of lavender and old memories. Liam stood at Rosie's door, watching his daughter sleep, wondering why he'd let a stranger into his home. And yet, he couldn't ignore the pain in Claire's eyes. It wasn't the kind you fake. In the morning, Rosie padded into the kitchen in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, who's that lady?" Claire looked up from the table, holding a cup of tea Liam had made. "She's a friend," Liam said simply. "She needed help." Rosie walked over and sat beside her. "You look like a princess," she whispered. Claire smiled for the first time in days. "I'm no princess, sweetie." "Good," Rosie replied, "princesses are always waiting to be saved." "You look like you saved yourself." Claire blinked, stunned. Liam looked at his daughter, heart swelling with quiet pride. And for the first time in years, breakfast felt warm, not because of the food, but because someone else was finally sitting at that empty seat. The days passed, and Claire stayed. She helped Liam around the house, cleaned up after Rosie's cereal spills, and repaired a wobbly chair with nails and glue. Liam didn't ask questions. He only listened when Claire was ready to talk, and when she did, pieces of her truth came spilling out. Her fiancé wasn't just rich, he was Alexander Godwin, heir to one of the most powerful real estate empires in the country. Her marriage to him would have cemented his political ambitions and silenced whispers about his personal life. Claire had been chosen, not loved. "I was a dancer," she admitted one evening, sitting on the porch beside Liam. "Modern ballet. That's how I met him, at a charity gala. He liked how I moved. Not who I was." Liam nodded slowly. "I fix engines, not people. But I know what it feels like when someone sees you as a tool." Claire looked at him, tears shining. "You're the first person who's spoken to me like I'm not a product. And yet, peace doesn't last." One morning, a black SUV pulled into the driveway. Alexander had found her. Two suited men stepped out, followed by the billionaire himself, immaculate, furious, and determined. "Claire. Enough of this nonsense. Come home." Liam stood between them. "She's not property. You don't get to order her around." Alexander sneered. "You must be the mechanic. The single father. Claire's charity project." Claire stepped forward. "No. He's the man who gave me shelter when I had nothing. The man whose daughter reminded me who I used to be. And the man who showed me that love doesn't control, it protects." Alexander's jaw tightened. "You're making a mistake." "No," she said, voice strong. "I made a mistake when I tried to marry someone who never knew how to love." With that, she turned and walked back into the house. The SUV drove away. That evening, Liam found Claire sitting beside Rosie on the couch. They were giggling at a cartoon. He watched them quietly, heart pounding. Later, as he stepped into the kitchen, Claire followed him. "I need to tell you something," she said. "When I left Alexander, I also left behind my name, my identity. But I've also left behind a sizable amount of money that was mine before I ever met him. Inheritance. And I don't want it anymore." Liam raised an eyebrow. "What will you do?" "I want to open a dance studio. For girls like me. And boys like Rosie, who dream, but don't always get the chance." He smiled. "I'll help. I know a guy who fixes floors." She chuckled. "Thank you for seeing me. Not the dress. Not the past. Me." As the months passed, they did more than open a studio, they built a life. Claire taught dance. Rosie twirled in leotards. And Liam, well, he learned that sometimes, the most beautiful things come not from chasing wealth, but from offering a lift to a stranger in the rain. Sometimes, the greatest blessings come disguised in torn dresses, muddy shoes, and broken hearts. And sometimes, healing doesn't come in mansions or limousines, but in tiny kitchens, whispered laughter, and people who see us, really see us. Even when we're hiding,